All right, I'm gonna come in here and put some grass over here. And then maybe we'll come over here and we'll put a lake over here. Let's put some more grass. Maybe we'll put like a little river that goes here and there. Maybe we'll start putting some snow up here. In this video, we're going to extend our map editor to be able to place tiles. Let's get started. The starting source code as well as the completed source code are in the description below. If you just want to teleport to the end of the video and start playing around with the level editor, by all means, feel free. There are 3 new images for this project, which will be linked in the description below. If you've downloaded the starting code, they will already be there. There's 3 parts to this video. First, we need to set up our engine to be able to handle a level editor. The second is we need to be able to design the user interface, like all the buttons that you're going to click. We're going to finish off by allowing our editor to actually set tiles. In this video, we won't be implementing a save feature, so don't work too hard on the maps that you create. In the next video, we will implement a save feature. Let's create another stage. So from last time, we added a stage to our editor called choose file. And we're going to come in here and add another one called edit map.py. Start by creating a function called edit map. Then go ahead and jump into main.py. Go ahead and import this function up at the top, and then go ahead and register that function as a stage of our game. As a reminder, our game is broken up to stages, so the main menu is this one stage, the actual gameplay is another stage. Our editor has different stages, like when you choose a file, and then when you're actually editing a map. Now let's jump into choose file. So this was our previous stage here. And what it needs to do is it needs to load that stage. It needs to do that when it creates a map and also when you load the map, or like an existing map. And here we're going to add that to our create map function. And we'll also add it to our load map function. So it should move right into that edit map stage. To test this, go ahead and jump into main.py and we'll run it. Okay, we'll click on editor and then feel free to hit create. There we go, perfect. Close it and let's try it again. So we're gonna go to run. This time we need to test the load map, and there we go, perfect. Okay, so it's switching a stage. Now we need to sort of pass that file into that stage. What I think we should do is we'll have a template.map file that will basically just be copied into whatever the new file is that you want to create. That way you can have a map that you're like basing off of that can be what you use for every new map, for example. Let's come over here to content and we'll go to maps and let's go ahead and create a template.map file. I'm going to fill this whole thing with zeros and then I'm just going to do that. I think that's probably good. And then what we'll do is we'll put, I'm going to scroll down. Where's the player? Player's right here. So 0 and yeah, let's go to template map and we'll put a player right here too as well. Perfect. And then, so let's come into our choose file.py. Go ahead and find where you're doing the create map function. And before we do the switch to stage, super important, we're going to actually create that file, get the file from the map input. This next part is actually pretty important. So we need to check that the file doesn't already exist because otherwise we're going to override that file and you'll lose all of your data. We can import the OS module and then using that, we can check whether that file already exists. And if it does, just go ahead and hit, do return, right? We're just gonna bail out of the function and not go anything further. To copy a file in Python, there's actually many different ways. But by using Python modules such as OS and another one I'm going to show you, you can basically make this run on any system, right? So it can run on Windows, Mac, Linux, whichever. Let's go ahead and scroll up to the top. And we're going to import this module right here. This is a bunch of utility functions for copying files and such like that. So we're actually going to copy the file. Right after we check it, we'll copy that template.map file. Perfect. Now we need a way to basically pass this file name onto the next stage. Go ahead and jump into source, stages, and edit map. So what I did is we're going to have a bunch of fields for our map editor, different variables we want to keep track of. And then we're also going to have setters. I'm not really doing the editor in a class because I think that this is all right to just have a couple variables for that and this be sort of like a module instead of a class. We'll come over here and add our first field, which is the file name itself. We're just going to set it to none initially. This is the file that's currently being worked on. And then we'll come in here and we'll set the file name itself. Now, I am commenting these just for informational purposes. Don't feel like you have to put them. Just to navigate this file a little bit easier, I'm going to put these comments here. This will change the file name to whatever we set. We have to use a setter when we're accessing a global variable that's inside of some other function. You can't just import it and then set it because the one that you're importing is sort of a temporary copy of it. So let's come in here and we'll jump into choose file. Let's scroll up to the top and let's import that function that we just brought in. And then we'll scroll down to our create map function. And we'll find right after we're doing that copy file here, we're going to set the file name here. In addition, we need to do the same thing in our load map function. So kind of the same idea. Right before we're importing the engine, we're going to come in here, set the file name, and we're going to do map instead. So we'll load the map file, set it. Yeah, basically with the load map function, it doesn't have to do anything because you're not creating a new file. The next stage will basically be responsible for loading that. Now, one other thing with this, I want to show you. So let's jump into main.py and we'll run it. And if you jump into editor, take a look, the template.map file shows up here, which you may not necessarily want. Which I actually don't want myself. So let's go ahead and close this. And let's go into the choose file and we'll scroll down to our get maps function. So that's source, stages, and choose file. Inside of the get maps function, after we're getting all of the map files, we're going to come in here and just check to see if template map is in the files. And if it is, then we're going to remove it. Okay, so we'll jump into main.py and we'll run it. Okay, we'll go to editor. Yeah, and now it doesn't show up anymore. Let's go ahead and test this. So we'll say desert and we'll hit create. Now there's currently no way of going back yet. Let's go ahead and close this. And I can already see that it created a desert.map in content maps and desert map, which is great. Let's test it again. Let's come in, we'll do main.py. There we go. Yep, and we've got desert.map. The next thing to do is to prepare our engine to be able to have this editor. We're probably going to want to show what's going on with the map, like the actual tiles and entities. And if you just create all of that, it's going to literally run the game. So we need to slightly modify the game a little bit to be able to handle that. Let's jump into source components, and then we'll go to entity.py. We need a way to remove entities from our game. So currently we have this remove, but it takes in a kind. Instead, we're going to create a remove component, taking in a specific component. Okay, so the basic functionality of this new function here is that we're going to make sure that we actually have a component. And if we do, if that component has a breakdown method on it, we'll call it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to break any sort of ties with the entity, and then we'll just remove it from our components. We'll replace our remove function with remove component, and then we'll do C. So this one removes based on a type. So you can just say, hey, remove the sprite on it, or remove the label on this entity. Whereas if you already have a reference to that sprite somewhere, we now have this nice function for that. Go ahead and we'll jump into player.py. Our player class does not have a breakdown function. I like to put the breakdown functions after the setup. So we've got this setup method here. Let's come in here and we'll add a breakdown function. These are the entities that we need to break down. We're creating health bars and inventory, etc. So we'll just delete each one of those. The player also is an active object. It's updates, so we'll just remove it from the active objects as well. Thank you for sticking with me on this. Let's jump into Sprites.py. In the Sprite class, I actually encountered a bug where we are adding it to the drawables every single time, but sprites might be part of the UI. Let's take this line and we'll remove it. And in its place, we're going to determine whether the sprite is part of the UI. And if it is, we'll put it part of the UI drawables. Otherwise, we'll put it part of the regular drawables. The UI drawables get drawn over everything, and without doing this, some buttons actually won't appear. Let's go ahead and scroll down to the breakdown function, and we need to do something similar. So instead of just removing it from drawables, we'll come in here and we'll remove it from the UI itself. Perfect. We have everything here. The next annoying thing was the bar class wasn't removing itself. Let's go ahead and jump into source components UI, and we'll go to bar.py. Inside of our bar class, we'll come in here and we'll add a breakdown function, just simply removing itself from the UI drawables. The inventory view also needs a breakdown function. So we'll go to source components, UI, and inventory view. You know, half of the battle with adding new features is just integrating them, right? And sometimes you do have to modify or make your code a little bit more robust when you add a new feature. So come in here and we'll take a look. So this constructor is pretty big. Let's put it right before the update function. We'll come in here and we'll call the breakdown function. We'll remove ourselves from the active objects, and we'll call self.clear. I think from here, let's get the editor going, and then we'll see what we still need to do. So we'll jump into stages, editor, and we'll go to edit map. We're going to create an area right off the bat, similar to what we do with our gameplay stage. You don't have to jump here, but in stages and play, all we do is just load an area. So our map editor is kind of going to do the same thing. We're just going to load the area, but in sort of like an editor mode where we can change that area and set tiles and move things and such. And also then save the area once we're done. So it looks like we need to import the area and then tile kinds. So we'll come up here to the top. Go ahead and import tile kinds and area up at the top. You know what? Let's just test this thing. Let's see what it does. Let's go to main.py and we'll run it. So we'll go to editor and then we'll go to forest. Perfect. And actually this is excellent. It loaded the right map. So if we go to editor and we go to desert, yeah, it loaded the right map. But it's not in the editor mode. It's currently in gameplay. I mean, it didn't crash or anything. This is great. But we basically need to take away all of the functionality now that would normally happen with a game, and just sort of put it in an editor mode instead. So let's come in here and we'll close it. Go ahead and let's find our area class. So we'll go into core and we'll go to area.py. And in our constructor for our area, we're going to say is editor mode. And just by default, it's going to be false. But we'll come in here and we'll say self.isEditorMode equals isEditorMode. We need to find where we're adding all of our entities. So let's come in here and we'll see, it's right here. So right after we append each entity, let's come in here. Let's actually take this create entity out of it. And we'll do like E equals create entity. We'll replace this with E. And then in between these two lines, we need to come in here and do some logic. We'll check and see if it's editor mode. We basically want to remove every single component other than the sprite. So all you'll be left with is a sort of visual representation of the game, but all of the actual gameplay, like the enemy and player components, will all be taken away. Let's come in here, we'll import our sprite class. We're going to loop through each one of the components, and if that component is not a sprite, we're going to remove that component, and then we'll append it. Let's now jump into our editmap.py file, and we'll go into the area, and we're going to come in here and say is editor mode equals true. I think this is a good time to just test it and see what it does. Let's go to main.py and we'll run it. And even if it crashes, that's all right. Let's jump in here and we'll do, oh, okay. Actually, it didn't crash. But you might notice the inventory thing here is still there. If you see anything else like the bar, go ahead and just take a look where we were doing that integration code earlier and doing remove component. Just make sure everything is good. But yeah, let's get rid of this, this inventory thing here. So after taking a look and seeing why that didn't work, check this out. If we go into inventory view, so that's source components and UI, there actually already is a breakdown function defined. And that was causing it to not call it. Let's come in here and yeah, so there was, we created it up here, but it was already defined down here. So if you have breakdown defined twice, it may not work. Let's come into main and we'll run it. And let's go to editor, desert. Yeah, there we go. This is perfect. Nothing, right? Anything that's in the game, I'll close this. We really need a back button. Let's run it again. And let's go to like forest. Yeah, this is perfect. So essentially everything, you can see it, but it's all just sprites, right? We've taken, basically all of the active, gameplay parts out of every single object. And this will allow us to edit our map. Let's add a back button. So let's come into our edit map.py. I'm going to add another category for user interface. There will be quite a bit of functions in this video, so I think this is useful to break it up. We'll come in here and we'll clear our file name, and then we're also just going to switch to the choose file stage. Let's start laying out all of the buttons. We'll go ahead and we'll import the following up at the top. So entities, buttons, sprites, and labels. We're also going to import Pygame as well. Okay, let's scroll down here. We're going to have 4 buttons for a click tool, which lets you select things, a tile tool, which places tiles, a save button, which we're not going to implement in this video, and then a quit button, like a back button, which will just go, it'll go back to the choose file. This one right here will be our click button. This one will be our tile button. Again, so for each one of these, we're adding a button that listens for some event. We can have it call something later. And then we have 2 sprites. So there's a background to each one of the buttons, and then the tool. You might notice that the tool is different every single time. And you can kind of copy paste like this one. The only thing that changes is really this, and then also this too as well. We're going to move it down 64 pixels each button. So yeah, we'll come in here, we'll copy this one, and we'll do that. And let's change this one to say save.png, and then we'll change this to be 2. Last one that we got is this one. Go ahead and do cancel.png on this one, and then we do 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3 to place all those. This will call our back button press function that we just did, and hopefully go back to the last screen. Let's come in here to main.py and we'll run it. We'll go to editor and we'll choose one. Yeah, there we go. And then we have these buttons. So if you click them, nothing should happen except for this last one, which should take you back to this screen. Perfect, it works. So we'll close that, making good progress with this. Next, we want some kind of way of moving around or kind of viewing our map. And let's create an editor helper. Let's go to source components and we'll create a new file called editor_helper.py. Declare a variable up top for the movement speed. We'll just create a simple class, component that basically updates. Come in here, create an update function. Very similar to our player, this will just move the camera directly instead of moving like an entity. We need to import these, so let's come up to the top. Perfect, yeah, so we'll import is key pressed and then Pygame. And then, yeah, so that'll move the camera as we go. Go ahead and jump into Stages, Editor, and we'll go to edit map.py. Let's scroll up here, and then go ahead and just create an editor helper. Let's test it. We'll jump into main.py and we'll run it. Okay, we'll go to editor and we'll go to desert map. Yeah, and you can move around with WASD. You can obviously, if you want to make that faster, jump into your editor helper and you can just change this movement speed up here. Yeah, so if 8 is not fast enough, you can do 16, or if it's too fast, you can do 4, whichever. So far, we've actually knocked through 2 things. So we've prepared our engine for the editor, and then we've also set up sort of the user interface of the editor. This is very, very good. For the last part of this video, we'll get it so that you can actually place tiles down. Again, we're not going to save anything, so don't work too hard on something, but this will be a good kind of way for us to test it all. So let's go ahead, we'll get to work, we'll jump into stages, and we'll go to edit map.py. We'll scroll up to the top here. And we're going to keep track of the current tool that we're using. Now, one way to handle mouse things in a simulation game or some kind of a GUI application is to basically keep track of a current tool that you're using. So when you click the mouse, it basically just uses the current tool that you're using, and that's how you handle that click. So if you have the tile tool on, when you click, it places a tile. Or when you have the click tool, it can drag things, right? We're also going to need to keep track of the current tile that we're painting on the screen. With each tool, we may potentially have additional user interface elements. For example, for the tile tool, you're going to be able to pick any one of the tiles. You're going to be able to just click lava and then start dragging it, as you saw kind of in the beginning of the video. We'll keep track of this in a list. It's none right now, but when you start the stage, we'll actually make it into something. And one last thing, we're going to have a text input that we can use with any one of these tools. It'll just be named field 1, and each one of the tools might have different text fields that they might use. This will be important later. Because we have a tile index here, we also need to have a setter here. This will work with our scroll view that we're going to do later. We're also going to have a set tool, which will do the same here, but we'll also deal with the state changes that happen with setting a new tool. Come in here and import the following. So we'll import the tool entities in field 1 as well as tool, and we'll set it equal to the new tool. For debugging purposes, you can print the tool if you want. We're going to clean up all of the UI entities of the previous tool. So again, the tile tool is going to have a scroll view where you can pick grass or ice or lava, whichever. When you click a different tool, we need to clean up that scroll view. We need to throw that scroll view away. So we'll just come in here, we'll call delete self. And then if we did have a text field of some sort with that tool, we'll just set it equal to none so it gets rid of it. Similarly, we'll clear out all of the entities that tool used. The only tool that we're going to code in this video for now is the tile tool. But we can just use an if-elif kind of pattern to determine which tool it is. We'll come in here, we'll import the area class as well as the camera class. Camera class will be for placing stuff. This is where we actually need to take a break here. We need to extend our tile kind class to know what image it is. That way we can create a sprite of all of those when we do our scroll view. Let's come in here, we'll do source, core, and then we'll go to map.py. Inside of the tile kind class, we'll keep track of the image name. And while we're here, we're going to come down here to our map class and we'll code a set tile function. Let's go right after the is point solid and create a new method called set tile. The code is actually identical to all of this in your is point solid, but not the last two lines. The reason why is you want to check and see if the tile is actually on the map. It's possible that the mouse may be outside of the map. Let me give you an example here real quick. Oh yeah, it's not going to work. So it's possible when you're editing this that the mouse, for example, may be outside of the map, and you can't set the tile if it's outside of the map. So come in here, we'll copy this. We could probably make it a function, but I think this is all right for now. We'll come in here, we'll copy all of this. We can get rid of this true here. All we have to do is set that tile to the specific index that we used, like so. So this index will determine which kind of tile it is, like grass or ice or whichever, and you're just setting it equal to that. Perfect. Let's go back to our edit map. We'll save time with a little bit of list comprehension. So we're basically saying, okay, get me a list of all of the image names of each one of the tile kinds. So for each tile kind, we're just getting its image name. You're going to end up with a list of just a bunch of strings of each one of the names. Let's also extend our scroll view to be able to support sprites instead of just labels. Go ahead and go to source components. We'll go to UI, and then we'll go to scroll view. This function right here, as a reminder, creates a bunch of labels like text for our scroll view. To show you what I mean by this is the result of that. It creates a bunch of text like desert map, forest map, volcano map, etc. I think it would be really nice if we had a similar function that just creates sprites for all of that. So you could have a bunch of images that you pick from. Perhaps right before it, we'll come in and we'll create another one for doing sprite generic, taking in an item and scroll view just like the other one. We're going to import our sprite and our entity class. And really all we have to do is just create a sprite given the item. We're going to assume that it's the name of some image file, and then also true for saying that it's part of the UI. Perfect. Let's now jump into, so go to stages, editor, and edit map. Perfect. So we'll come in here and we'll create a scroll view. We need to import these. Let's do that real quick. I'll come back to this code. import the following up at the top, the scroll view class, and then also this new function we created. Perfect. We scroll down, we should be good to go. So yeah, we're taking in all the image names of each one of the tiles. We're telling it to create sprites for each one. The set current tile function will basically say, hey, when you click on a tile, we're gonna set it to whichever it is. And then these are for positioning it, the scroll view to the right of the screen. So we're going off of the camera width. So we're shoving it all the way to the right. And then, yeah, we're doing these for values. The height, we're going to make it go all the way down to the bottom of the screen. A couple more things with the scroll view. I modified the function to also pass an index as well. Let's go into our choose file function. Go ahead and scroll to your load map function and just type the word index here. We don't need it, but scroll views are also going to pass the index as well to functions. Let's now come into our go to UI, and then we'll go to source components and UI, and then we'll go into our scroll view.py. Go ahead and we're going to scroll down all the way to where you have this self.onChoose. If you want to search for this, you can. It's near the bottom. We're going to come in here. We're going to add one more argument, and that is the item index right at the very end of this. That way we know which one was clicked on. Like, oh, the 5th one was clicked on, or the 3rd one, or whichever. And that'll be super helpful later on. While we're here in the scroll view, there's a couple other things. We don't have a breakdown function, and we'll need one later. Let's come in here and we'll create a breakdown function. It'll also make it so that it's not drawing or updating anymore. One last thing, in testing this, I added padding when the items get created. Let's go ahead and go to our setup function and find where you're setting the entity y. We'll come in here, we'll do entity x equals, and we'll say padding. This will just place items a little bit to the left and just make it generally look a little bit better. Next, we're going to jump back into our stage. So we'll go to stages, editor, and we'll go to edit map.py. Let's go ahead and scroll down to where we were. So we're in this set tool function. We'll come down to the very bottom of it, and we'll add this to our tool entities here. So we're going to add the scroll view here to the tool entities. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll go down a little bit and then find your tile tool button. Right where it's this lambda here, we'll come in here and we'll call our set tool function. Yeah, call the set tool function and we'll say tile. One more thing, let's come into the edit map and we'll bring in our we'll bring in our tool entities. So go to the edit map function down at the bottom of this file and we'll bring in our tool entities. Set tool entities to a new list. We'll clear that out every single time we set it. Let's jump into main.py and we'll run it. Okay, we'll go to editor and let's click this button. There we go. And we have the scroll view over on the right. Now there's not enough different tiles to choose from for there to be a scroll. Maybe there will be in the future. We actually need to edit our map file to do that, which I think we'll do in a next video so that we can support more tiles. But yeah, I think that this looks good for now. Let's come in here, we'll close it, and we'll go from there. So actually painting tiles to the screen involves handling the mouse. We have this nice editor helper, which has an update loop. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to use that. Go up to the top here in the user interface, and we're going to come in here and create a new function called onClick. And we'll just have it print clicked. There we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to jump into our editor helper here. So it's in source components and editor helper. We're going to come up to the constructor here and we're going to take in an onClick function. And we're also going to handle the onClick. We're going to add it as a member of this class. Then go ahead and scroll down a little bit and we're going to add this to the following. So we're basically going to check and see if the mouse is pressed down. We're not going to use just press. We want to check every single frame if the mouse is pressed because we're going to set the tiles. They're going to be able to keep drawing if they hold the mouse button down. Let's go ahead and we'll jump back into our stages. So we'll say stages, editor, and we'll go to edit map.py. In our editor helper, we'll come in here and we'll say onClick to reference our onClick function. Come in here, we'll take in our tool. We'll get the current mouse position. we're basically going to see which tool it is when you click, and then we're going to call some function. Let's create stubs for these functions. I'm going to come up here after user interface. We'll go right there. Yep, and we'll add a couple of functions for different tools that we'll have. We don't have a place entity button yet, but we'll just add it here anyway. Why don't we also add the save map function? It's not going to do anything yet, but let's add it. Jump into your place tile function, and we're going to get the current position relative to the camera. We're going to import our area class. Earlier, we created a set tile function, which we can now just use. Yep, and we'll just basically call the set tile function, passing in the X and Y of the mouse, and then the current tile index. I think we should test this. Let's jump into main.py and we'll run it. Okay, and we'll go to editor and we'll go to desert map. Let's try it out. So we'll do grass. There we go. It's actually placing grass. So you can now play around with this editor here. In actual practice, I want to show you something. The thing is that it's actually really long to sort of just fill this entire thing with grass. Notice how, I have to really kind of, it just takes a long time to do it. And that's because we're only filling one tile at a time. So what we can do instead is we can increase the brush size. And this is where we could have a text field that does this. Let's come in here and we'll close this. We are going to add a little bit more code, and thank you for sticking with me on this. I know it's a long kind of video. We're going to add a text field that allows the user to choose their brush size. Let's come into stages and editor and then edit map.py. Find the set tool function and then the where the tool is the tile. We're going to add a label for our field. This label will say brush size, and it will be placed at the very bottom of the screen. We're going to similarly add so for our field 1, right? Every single tool might have different fields. For this field, for field 1, it's going to be a text input field. And this text input field will be placed at the bottom. It'll be placed to the right of the field label. Yeah, feel free if you want to copy this down, and then you can play around with these values later to kind of see what's going on with it. I think that's an easier way to kind of see. I had to sort of do the math to figure out where it was going to be placed on the the screen. We need to import this text input class, so let's go up to the top. Yeah, so we'll come in here, we'll import the text input up at the top. Let's scroll back down. So yeah, this is in set tool function, the if statement right at the end of that. We'll come in here and we'll just add it to our tool entities here. We've already done the cleanup on this, so we don't need to do the cleanup on it. But let's come in here and let's actually get rid of this. It's possible that there's an invalid value in that text field, like that the user typed in text or whichever. So we're actually going to wrap this in a try except to do that. So let's get rid of this. Go ahead and type the following. If we get an exception, we'll just print it. We don't necessarily really care. If they didn't choose a valid value, we can just ignore that exception. But either which way, otherwise, if you don't do this, Python will crash. Let's come in here and we'll do our pass. We can simply get the number that's placed inside of that brush size field by doing the following. We'll just take the text and we'll convert it to an integer. We've already declared X and Y, so we'll declare new variables for that. And we are now going to call our set tile function going up by 32 pixels every single time, which is the size of the tile. And we'll do current tile index. Moment of truth. Let's see if this works. Let's jump into main.py and we'll run it. Okay, editor, and we'll go to volcano map. Let's choose a tile. And yeah, now you have this nice field down there. Let's choose 3. I'm going to click water. And there we go. And you might notice that water, because the brush size is now 3, it's much bigger. So you're able to draw things a lot quicker by doing that. I can set it back to 1. Now, one other thing I want to show you, take a look at this. As soon as I clicked this here, it actually placed a tile. So we need to ignore the mouse input at certain locations. But yeah, either which way this works, if you type like fish in here, or something like that, it's actually not going to do anything, which is perfect. You actually have to type like 1 and then it will start working again. Okay, this works good. Let's go ahead and close it. We'll go to back and quit game. One last thing that we'll do is we'll handle that right after you get the mouse position, go ahead and import the camera. I know this is a bit of code, so there's a couple checks I want you to be aware of. And again, this is optional, but it'll just make it a little bit better. Totally up to you if you want to add this. If the mouse is over that scroll view over on the right, or if the mouse is over the buttons on the top left, or if the mouse is below a certain point of the screen, which I think in future we may turn that bottom part of it into like a bar. If any one of those is the case, we're just going to return. We're not going to call the function. And last but not least, let's go ahead and run this. So if you go to main.py, we go into desert. And if I come in here and I'm clicking, right, notice it won't place tiles where the buttons were. Yeah, so we can also do the same thing with, the scroll. So it'll maybe slightly do it sometimes, but yeah, like that time it didn't do it. So perfect. And then same thing down here, right? If you're down near the scroll, yeah, it won't. It'll stop there too as well. That about wraps it up for this video. I hope that this has given you some insights in how to create a text editor. We still have a little bit of work to do on our level editor. We need to do entities. We need to save the game. And then we'll basically have a fully fledged map editor that we can use to create areas in our game a lot quicker. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope that this has been helpful. Again, if you get stuck on anything, all of the source code is in the description below. Thank you so much. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.